Hello there. In this webinar, we'll be talking about supersets for performance enhancement. What is superset in weight training? Supersets are a training technique where you alternate two exercises with little to no rest between them. By alternating exercising this way, you can maximize the efficiency of every workout, doing more work in less time, which means saving time, and that's important in some cases. Of course, this is not the only benefit of supersets. Let's start talking about few kinds of supersets that are useful for improving sports performance. The first kind of supersets is upper-lower alternating supersets. Let's say we are doing a set of squats and a set of push-ups alternately. This way we are increasing central fatigue. Cardiorespiratory system works very hard, but minimizes local or peripheral fatigue. Imagine you are doing a set of 10 squats, hard set, decent weight, take 60 seconds rest, and do it again. You can imagine how your legs would feel after doing 3 sets of that in about 5-6 minutes. Now, let's imagine you're doing a set of squats, a minute break, a set of push-ups, a minute break, and so on. You have a longer period of time in between sets of squats. That means less central fatigue as well, which is good in this case. Of course, this also decreases local fatigue in the specific muscle group. This kind of supersets is particularly important for sports performance because we have more time to rest our legs, which is extremely important if we are working on maximum strength development, 85% plus of one repetition maximum, for example, 3 sets of 5, 5 sets of 3, etc. Of course, we can always take a bit more rest, especially between the two supersets. 3 to 5 minutes is theoretically perfect if we work on max strength, but 2 minutes are also more or less fine during the first few sets, because remember that we already have 1 minute of relatively resting legs while doing an upper body exercise. And remember, if you choose max strength development for lower body, try to avoid pairing with upper body max strength reps scheme because it could be very CNS taxing. This means it's recommended to do your upper body exercise with few reps short of failure. Last but not least, there are many good pairings out there. For example, pairing front squat and chin up is very popular. Now, let's mention a few tips on this kind of supersets. You don't need to rush this kind of supersets if your goal is not fat loss. For fat loss, you would need to do this faster in order to reach a proper metabolic effect, which perfectly makes sense. The second one, you need to watch lower back in order to avoid some issues. Try to avoid alternating deadlift, hinge pattern, and bend over row or similar. The third one, watch the grip. Try to avoid deadlifts with rows or chin ups. And the last one, try to avoid two exercises that involve core musculature to a greater degree, because there is no sense to fatigue core too much before a big compound lift. The second kind of supersets is inhibition facilitation. We use this to improve movement quality or get an optimal position at a specific joint. Examples: hip flexor static stretch, glute bridge. Inhibition of the hip flexors with activation of the hip extensors. The goal here is to shut off the muscles on the front side by stretching. They're pulling or rotating the pelvis forward, creating anterior pelvic tilt. With glute bridge, we are pulling or rotating the pelvis backward by recruiting glutes. All in all, getting hip extension back easier, which will also increase gluteal activation. Or you can do any half kneeling exercise paired with any hip hinge strength exercise, for example, pull through. Of course, it can be very useful if we stretch any antagonistic muscle group right before working on strengthening agonists. A good example could be pairing stretching pecs with reverse pec deck. Stretching can be dynamic. For example, stretch through the full range of motion while exhaling 3 to 6 times of 6 seconds long exhale per set, or static stretching for at least 30 seconds per set. You can use this kind of supersets in both max strength and hypertrophy. Just adjust exercises accordingly. When it comes to rest between supersets, you can take 2 minutes or even a bit less if you do max strength, for example, because stretching by itself is a bit longer and could speed up recovery a bit within the superset. I would avoid this kind of supersets though when the second drill is a power drill because of antagonist coactivation in order to both stabilize and slow or stop the explosive movement down after releasing the ball, for example. This is important for injury reduction. The third kind of supersets is patterning. Uh, this one is perfect for learning or relearning a proper exercise technique, which in turn leads to improving sports performance and decreased injury risk. This means that it improves movement quality in a specific lift, exercise, or movement. This is great for beginners. For example, pairing wall tap hip hinge with hinge variation. For example, barbell Romanian deadlift, kettlebell swing for advanced, and so forth. The second example is half kneeling exercise, for example, one arm cable press, one arm cable row, and so forth with split squat or lunge. When it comes to number of sets and reps, it's important not to force learning under fatigue, which means that 3 to 5 sets of 6 plus 6 or 5 plus 5 reps is plenty. You can take a bit more rest between supersets because we need to be fresh when learning new movement patterns. The fourth and the last kind of supersets I would like to talk about is potentiation. This is the most interesting one because it can immediately improve needed performance. This is strategy to stimulate the nervous system to improve the force power output. Examples: squat, box jump, or you can switch it, box jump, squat, if the goal is to squat heavier. The second example is deadlift, broad jump. Or bench press, supine medicine ball throws. The important question here in general is if we want to develop force or power. If we are chasing force, we will go heavier on the main exercise and something a little bit slower but still explosive for the contrast exercise, which means a bit heavier load but not too heavy, which can decrease technique quality. This means that here we can do 3 reps with 5 repetition maximum load, and here we can do loaded squat jump or loaded box jump. For example, by holding dumbbells or barbell that is around 50% of back squat 1 repetition maximum. If we do something for power, the bar speed is going to be fast, around 40 to 60% of back squat 1 repetition maximum. Just imagine this very fast, especially when it comes to concentric phase. And a band assisted exercise that will allow us to move more quickly. Another important thing is to keep it vector specific. Thinking about, is it a sport we play vertical power dominant or horizontal power dominant? We can also tend to improve movement skill in athletic and or multi-directional movements. Here is a good example: bend hip turn, reactive hip turns. In general, because we are doing 2 exercises with little rest between them, make sure not to exceed 3 to 4 reps per exercise because we are working on expressing max power and our body cannot produce it when tired. You can take 3 to 5 minutes of rest between supersets and 3 to 5 total sets. Of course, you can take 2 minutes rest, which is often more practical because it saves time, but power outcomes and training effect might not be 100%. But of course, this is the perfect time for using velocity-based training. Thanks for listening. Feel free to contact me if having any question. Also, you can check my website for more info.